Time now for Sit Sarah. This is where I got 60 seconds to talk about anything. Start the clock, please. Here's what's on my mind this morning. The images out of Afghanistan for basically the last week have been incredible. And as you watch it play out in real time on social media, you tend to do a lot of thinking. First thing I think about is what will become of women in that country and those who helped us fight. Second thing I think of are the families of those who didn't come back home. 157 Canadians. What are those families feeling today? 456 British soldiers. What are those families feeling today? Over 2,300 American soldiers. What are those families feeling today? One can only imagine. 20th anniversary of 9/11 is fast approaching, and with it essentially the 20-year anniversary of the war in Afghanistan. How can those families watch the Taliban roll through previously held Allied territory in a week like a hot knife through butter and not feel unbridled rage? A lot of people sacrificed a lot to win that war. It's them I am also thinking about. Donnovan Bennett of Sportsnet, dear friend of the show, joining us. I'm going to back off, Donnovan. We've seen a lot over the last, just this past weekend was unbelievable. Where's your head at?
My head and what I'm thinking about is what, if anything, are we going to learn from this, right? After anything important, you do a bit of an audit, at least you hope to. And this is the longest war in Canadian history. This is our generation's Vietnam. And so whether or not you believe it was the right time to leave, it's clear the USA, the UK, everyone overestimated maybe the ability for the Afghan government to be functioning when they were gone. So when I'm watching those scenes and those social media videos that you refer to, which kind of look like a real life version of an episode of Homeland, except Carrie Matheson and Saul Berenson can't solve this in half an hour. My thought is, well, we have an election coming up. Right? We should do an audit. Will we be asking some real tough questions, some thought-provoking questions about where we are in terms of our foreign policy? What can we expect to do in regions? What is realistic? Because let's be clear, this is a failure of leadership, among other things, at all levels. Joe Biden didn't answer any questions. President Ashraf Ghani fled. And we, as you mentioned, have a real responsibility to get many Afghans who helped Canadians, helped those soldiers home, get them to safety. And so it's really tough from a PR perspective and a logistics perspective to do that while you're campaigning. So I really want to know, was it worth it? The lives lost, the tax dollars spent, was this investment worth it? What was the end game here? And above all else, we can maybe say that this was a 20-year failure, but if we don't learn from it, it's going to be a tragedy.
It is well said. I agree with everything there. It's interesting in that Canada pulled out of Afghanistan in 2014. So there was an element to a lot of Canadians where we do feel detached to the story. But I have not run into a single person who isn't completely shook by what they're seeing and continuing to see, despite the fact Canada's been out of Afghanistan for a very, very, very long time. And we all remember the emotions after 9/11. That's what I keep going back to. I always will believe going into Afghanistan was the right thing because the mission was clear. It got messed up, but the mission was clear. To be 20 years later and to be basically in the same spot, arguably Taliban are stronger than they were, is heartbreaking. And there are so many families in Canada and allied nations across the world, NATO nations. I sympathize. I don't know what you're thinking right now. It's incredible. Donnovan, love you. Donnovan Bennett will be in tomorrow. See you tomorrow. He'll be co-hosting with me. Thanks, man.
Can't wait.
All right, we're going to take another break here on Breakfast Television. Coming up, you sound off. Big announcement today from the province of Ontario and Chief Medical Officer of Health, Dr. Kieran Moore. There will be an announcement about healthcare workers, about frontline healthcare workers and education staff regarding mandated vaccines. We're not sure how far it's going to go. We'll find out later. But when you sound off, you tell us, should it be mandatory across the board? It's tough. It's a tough call. I get it. But is it needed? There's the phone number. There's the email address. That's the Twitter account. It's 6:44 Toronto. Good Tuesday morning. You're watching BT.